Have you ever looked at an old but super important application and just wondered, how do we drag this thing into the modern world? Well, today, that's exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna map out the entire journey from a clunky old legacy system, probably humming away in a server closet somewhere, all the way to a sleek, powerful, serverless app running on AWS Lambda. So let's dive in. So here's our game plan. We're gonna tackle this in 5 stages. First, we'll dig into what's wrong with the old on-premise setup. Then, we'll make our first quick and dirty move to the cloud, something called a lift and shift. After that, we start getting smart, modernizing with managed services, before we finally reach the holy grail, a truly cloud-native app. And to wrap it all up, we'll see how this whole blueprint isn't just about one cloud provider, it's a pattern you can use everywhere. All right, so every story has a beginning, and ours starts with a real unsung hero, the legacy application. You know the one. It's been running for years, maybe decades, in the company's own data center. It's a reliable workhorse, for sure, just chugging away on some servers in a back room. This is our starting line, the on-premise world. Now really put yourself in this spot for a second. This is your app. It's getting creaky, it's slow, trying to update it is a total nightmare, and just keeping the hardware from dying is a constant headache. You know you've got to modernize, but where do you even begin? What's the plan?
This is what we're talking about when we say legacy application. And you know, the best way I've found to think about it is, it's like owning a really old house. Yeah, it's got charm, it gets the job done, but you are on the hook for everything. The leaky roof, the flickering lights, the busted plumbing, that's all you. You end up spending way more time just keeping the lights on than actually making the house a better place to live.
So the first logical step is to get out of the home repair business, right? And that brings us to the very first stage of our cloud journey, the lift and shift. The name pretty much says it all. It's about moving your application out of your data center and into the cloud as fast as humanly possible.
The process here is honestly deceptively simple. You basically just box up your entire application, database and all, and you plop it onto a virtual server in the cloud, like an Amazon EC2 instance. Going back to our house analogy, this is like hiring movers to take all of your old furniture, all your old appliances, all your clutter, and just moving it into a new rental house. You're in a new building, but guess what? You brought all your old problems with.
So, you did it. The app is officially running in the cloud. You can power down those old physical servers for good. Mission accomplished, right? We're done? Well, not so fast. The journey has really only just begun. And here's the big trade-off with this whole approach. The pro is obvious. It's fast and it's relatively simple. That's a huge win. But the cons, they're pretty major. You haven't actually optimized a single thing. You're still patching the same operating system, you're still managing the same clunky database, and you're still fighting with the same old architecture. You've just moved the mess onto someone else's computer, which, by the way, might not even save you any money in the long run. So those limitations of just lifting and shifting bring us to our next and really crucial phase of the evolution. It's time to get smarter. It's not enough to just be in the cloud. We need to start actually using the cloud for what makes it so powerful. And this is all about modernizing our app. The main goal here is to stop doing all the grunt work that doesn't actually make your product better. Let the cloud provider, like Amazon, handle what they call the undifferentiated heavy lifting. You know, stuff like patching databases, running backups, maintaining servers. In our analogy, we're moving out of that rental house and into a fully serviced apartment. You don't worry about the plumbing or the security anymore. There's a management company that handles all of that for you. Okay, so how do we actually start doing this? Well, the first, most logical place to begin is by decoupling the database. Right now, our app and its database are all tangled up together on that one virtual server. It's a classic monolithic design. The next move is to surgically pull that database out and move it over to a managed service, like Amazon's RDS. That's their relational database service. And just like that, poof, Amazon is now responsible for the backups, the security patches, the scaling of our database. That is a huge weight off of our team's shoulders.
But hey, why stop there, right? The next logical step is to break up the application itself. We can package it into something called containers. Just think of them as these little self-contained boxes that have our code and everything it needs to run. By running these containers on a managed service like AWS Fargate, we don't even have to manage the virtual server for our app anymore. The cloud just handles that too.
So what do we get for all this work? Well, the benefits are huge. We've slashed our management overhead. Our app is way more scalable and reliable because the cloud can now handle failures and big traffic spikes for us automatically. And maybe most importantly, our team can finally stop playing defense with infrastructure and start building cool new features for our customers. Man, we have come a long way from that dusty server closet. But believe it or not, there is one final transformation left. This is where we go from just using the cloud to becoming truly of the cloud. This is it, the serverless cloud-native final form.
Serverless is the ultimate destination on this journey. To finish our analogy, this is like checking into a smart hotel. You don't own the building, you don't rent the apartment, you just pay for the room for the exact amount of time you use it, and everything, cleaning, security, room service, is taken care of for you, instantly.
So what on earth is serverless? Well, let's be clear. It doesn't mean there are no servers. Of course there are servers. It just means you never have to think about them, ever. You just write your code in these tiny independent functions, things like AWS Lambda, that just wake up and run automatically when something happens, like a user clicking a button. The cloud provider deals with literally everything else.
And that brings us to the magic number, the big payoff. 0. 0 servers to provision, 0 operating systems to patch, 0 servers to manage, monitor, or worry about in the middle of the night. It is a complete and total paradigm shift.
And this right here is the whole promise of serverless. It's the ultimate goal of offloading all that heavy lifting we talked about. You can now focus 100% on your code, not your servers. I mean, just imagine what your team could build if they took all the time they spent on infrastructure and put it into creating new, amazing features. That is the power we're unlocking.
Okay, so we've made it. We've completed our entire journey on AWS. But what's so cool about this is that it isn't just an AWS story. Not at all. Let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture, because this evolution, it's a universal pattern.
This table, man, it just perfectly sums up our entire story. Just look at the trend here. As we move from on-premise all the way to cloud native, look what happens. The management overhead, all that painful work, just plummets. And at the same time, scalability and agility, your ability to move fast and adapt, they just skyrocket. That, right there, is the whole point of migrating to the cloud.
This blueprint, this whole pattern of evolution from legacy to Lambda, it is not unique to Amazon. This is a fundamental approach to modernization that works across all the big players, whether you're talking about Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud Platform.
See, the brand names on the box change, but the ideas inside are identical. A virtual server like EC2 is just a VM in Azure or a compute engine instance in Google Cloud. A managed database like RDS has a direct equivalent in Azure SQL and Cloud SQL. The pattern holds true for every single step of the journey we just took.
And that leaves us with one last thing to chew on. After this whole epic journey, after completely re-architecting our application from the ground up, was that original design a mistake? Was it wrong? Or was it just the product of its time? Maybe it was the absolute best solution built with the best tools they had for the era in which it was born. It's a pretty interesting thought about how fast technology really moves. Thanks for coming along on the journey today.